Good afternoon and welcome to my podcast. My name is Dr. Kelly Nicholson Harrison, and I'm the founder and CEO of She Business Management. She Business Management is a small business that specializes in training and strategic planning and development. So you can give us a call and we'll help you with your strategic planning. She stands for Sustainable Holistic Evolution. So we are definitely experts in change and in change management and in various other training topics. So if you are looking for someone to do your training either virtually or in person, give us a call. You can find our contact information at www.she1.net. So today I wanted to talk about diversity and inclusion. And I wanted to talk about what that means and for organizations and exactly define those terms so that we understand what diversity and inclusion truly is. And so when we are looking to create a diversity and inclusive training program for our employees, it's best that we identify these as two separate subjects. Diversity is one thing and inclusion is something else. So diversity is kind of where we start. So diversity has to do with the organization ensuring that they hire a broad range of individuals to work within the organization. So they are championing being able to hire people of different ethnic backgrounds, people of different religious backgrounds, people that identify differently than traditionally we have in the United States, people that choose to not identify as many of our Generation Z up-and-comers are. They're just saying those labels don't apply to me. I'm not going to identify. I'm not one or another. I'm a broad range of different people. And so it's making sure that we have Latinos, that we have Blacks, that we have women, that we have our LGBTQT personnel on staff, and that we recognize that there are no differences between any of these groups and that they all have something to offer us. So it's not hiring someone that is less than because they identify as with a certain group or identify in a number of different groups, but hiring the best employees because we always want to be intentional in our hiring processes. We want to hire people that fit with our organizational culture, that are excited about the product or the service that we are selling. So it's not hiring someone that's less than. It's not going by the numbers and making sure that we have a checklist and we say, okay, we have 5 women. Okay, we have 5 women of European descent and we have 3 men of African American descent, or that we have 15 people that identify as bisexual or such. That is not the intent. The intent is to make sure that we get the best employees by not putting labels on people, by not hiring by those labels, by making sure that we have a broad number of different types of employees. And how that benefits the organization is that people come with their own learning, right? So there's formal education through higher education and through our high schools and so forth. But then there's also what we bring with us, which is learned. So there's behaviors, there's understanding certain cultures, they're understanding how people that identify a certain way will react to a certain product, or how they'll accept or not accept a certain product. So it only benefits the organization to have a diverse number of employees, to have a vast number of different types of employees. And so for the most part in corporate America, we've done a pretty good job of that, right? So we no longer are attached to those labels. We no longer are, looking to fill quotas, but we're also, hiring the best candidates that we can for the job. Again, we're intentional with our hiring practices. And so this is kind of where corporate America has stopped, right? So they say, look, we have a diverse and inclusive environment. Look, we've got a lot of different types of people, and everyone's working together, and it's all harmonious, and everyone's working towards a certain goal. Because when we go ahead and we plan for our company to expand and to grow, then we all have to be working towards one initiative, right? So that's true, but not necessarily true. While we might have a number of different types of employees, and that's again, with us, categorizing people. That's kind of like what we do, right? When you go to sit down and take a standardized test, it says, check all the boxes with which you identify. So we look across our organization, we say, oh, we've got a whole bunch of different types of people. We're diverse, we're inclusive, right? Not so much. So we've reached that first mark of being diverse and having a number of different types of people and hiring intentionally because this is the best person for this position. But inclusion goes a little bit further, and it takes a little bit more work. So inclusion is making sure that everybody feels comfortable within the organizational culture, within their work environment. There are some people who don't celebrate certain holidays. There are holidays that other people do celebrate. So it's you've got to put the work in because it takes a lot of effort to make sure that you create an environment that is truly inclusive. And sometimes that means having difficult conversations and asking difficult questions. And because if you don't know, the best way to find out is to ask. And you do so out of a spirit of love. You don't go in accusing. You don't use the terms you people. I've heard that they. We're all part of the same group. We are humans, and we are all part of the human initiative, right? And we're all part of the human movement. So those are offensive. They just are. It's difficult to explain how it is offensive if you've never had that directed towards you, but it is offensive. When people use terms that say, I heard that you people don't ever wear green. So we're going to make sure that our uniforms aren't green because it would be offensive to you people. No, it wouldn't be offensive to you people. It would be offensive to us as an organization. If one portion of our company is injured, then all of our company is injured, and we're less than. And we want to set the bar high, and we want to be able to achieve that. So inclusion means making sure that everyone is comfortable, and it's difficult. It's really hard. It's really hard work because we are very, very, very diverse nation. There are lots of different types of people here, and therefore there are a lot of different types of people in our organizations. But we have to make sure that that's first and foremost. So we've got the diversity, right? We've got a bunch of different types of people. We're doing better to categorize less, and they're all excellent at their job. They all do well with their positions and are able to achieve their goals. So how do you create an organizational environment that is inclusive? What does that look like? So a lot of times when organizations have diversity and inclusion training, they start with the basics. Once again, going back to the basics, we have a lot of different type of people here. So we welcome anybody that can do the job and do it well, we welcome them. And then it kind of morphs into legalities, right? We talk about sexual harassment. We talk about bullying. We talk about having a hostile work environment. And we know that none of those are acceptable, and we have the law to back us, right? So what do we do about the gray areas? What do we do about the areas where there isn't a law governing us? And this is where we as owners and leaders, where we have to put the work in. And so, when we sit down to develop a diversity and inclusive plan or training session, we have to really think about what that looks like. What does it look like? It means putting things into practice besides the legalities, having a zero tolerance for racism, which we all that's morally driven. Legally, there's no black and white, right? So I can say that I felt singled out because I was an African American woman, but the burden of proof is on me. So unless someone comes out and really says, I don't like you because you're a woman, or I don't like you because you're African American, and I'm able to have that recorded, or I'm able to have that in writing somewhere, then it's just my word against someone else's. It's all about feelings, and that's more difficult to prove, right? Sexual harassment is difficult to prove, unless it's quid pro quo. You do this for me and I'll give you a promotion. You do this for me and I'll give you a raise. And so people that operate this way know that it's, ethically um, wrong, and so they don't come out and say it. So it's, it's just very difficult to prove. So we have the legalities, but it's kind of hard to enforce that in a court of law, and unless it's clear. There's no black and white. It's black and white, and there's no gray area. So when we sit down to create an inclusive organization, what does that look like? What does it look like? Holidays. What holidays are we going to honor? Is it only the those that the government honors? Are we going to use their schedule and say, okay, well, they are the governing body, so most government organizations close for President's Day, so we're closing for President's Day. Or do we include our Jewish friends? And do we make sure that their holidays, are included in our corporate calendar? What about our Muslim friends? Do we make sure that their holidays are included in our calendar? Do we give employees an option? Do we say, hey, we're a small company, we're a mid-sized company, production is what drives revenue, and revenue is what pays your salaries. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the big 5 or the big 6 or however many holidays there are now, depending on states, it changes, right? So we're going to take those, but then we're going to add 2 more holidays. And, those are your own days to take that you feel are important to you. Or we're going to add 3 or whatever the case may be. So that's part of a conversation that we need to have when we're trying to have an inclusive organization. What about women who are coming back to work after maternity leave? There are many, many, many more women that are breastfeeding nowadays because it's healthier for the baby. Do we make sure that we have an area where young mothers can breastfeed in private? It can be part of their breaks. Are we going to make sure that we give them 15 minutes to pump? What does that look like? Is that something that your organization that you've labeled as diverse and inclusive, is that something that you've thought about? Is that on your list? Things like daycare. Still largely in the United States, the burden of childcare falls on women. But it's important for women to be out there in the job market nowadays. There are very, very, very few households with one income. Now they're doing, that are doing very well. And I'm talking about kind of like middle America. So in most middle American households, you have 2 people that are working. Yet that burden of childcare still falls on the woman. I can remember when my sons were growing up. And, I was a working parent. I was fortunate enough that I didn't really work until they were school age. But whenever someone was sick, both mom and dad's phone number was listed with the school. They called mom first. So what makes my job less important than my husband's job? Did you ever think about that? For you moms out there, I know you're getting a lot of phone calls. What we decided to do so that we made sure that all things were equal in our household, and I'm dating myself because this was some years ago, is we purchased a pager. And each week we would switch the pager on and off. And so one week I would carry it, one week my husband would carry it, and so forth, so on and so forth. And we instructed the school to call this number. So whoever got the call was the person that had the beeper that week. And so it was their responsibility to go pick up the sick kid or the kid in trouble or whatever the case may be. But when we're talking about making sure that we have an inclusive work environment, are you able financially to have an on-site daycare? Not everybody can do that. And I'm not saying that that's something that you have to do in order to, claim that you are a diverse and inclusive organization. But there are a lot of things to think about. And so there's difficult situations and difficult conversations that need to be had. In the African American community, for African American women, there is a lot of emphasis put on our hair. Okay. Some organizations, be it right or be it wrong, whatever the case may be, they might look at an African American woman with, dreads, as not fitting into their work environment. These are preconceived notions that we have in our mind, but these are things that we also need to talk about, things that we need to think about out loud. Just because I have dreadlocks, does that mean that I'm not going to be as good at the job as somebody else? There are some implications that could fall into play when you're talking about a production environment, and making sure that there's safety and that the head's covered and stuff like that. Um, just if my hair's really really long, then there could be some safety issues, but we can overcome those. There's ways that we can overcome them. You pin your hair up and you make sure that it doesn't get stuck in the machinery. But using that as a reason to not hire someone, I would say you have to really kind of think: is my company inclusive? Especially those individuals that are in human resources. A lot of times they screen the candidates first. So on paper, everyone looks equal, right? But then when they come in for interviews, this is something that African American women think about. And I don't know that corporate America knows that we think about it this much. So we get that call and we're excited. Hey, we've looked at your resume. We want to bring you in to meet with the manager, the director, the CEO, the CFO. So we think you might be a good fit, but we'd like to bring you in so that we could talk to you some more. Okay. So now if I'm, an African American woman that chooses to wear my hair naturally, now I'm thinking, is that going to be in keeping with their organizational culture? I'm not sure. So I'm going to change my hair up, however, I feel necessary. It happens. The next time you have a conversation, and this is why I say there are difficult conversations that need to be had with your employees to create an environment that is inclusive. Ask them. Ask them. But like I said, when you approach someone, you approach them out of love, and you approach them saying, hey, I want more information about this. I want to educate myself so I can be a more well-rounded person. You don't ever approach anyone. Once again, I reiterate I notice that you people, you've already gotten me offensive. Like, what do you mean, you people? Smart people, beautiful people, intelligent people, accountants, trainers, teachers, PhDs. What do you mean by you people? Because already you're separating me from you, right? Okay. So anyway, these are just some of the tidbits that I kind of wanted to bring to your attention and really talk about when we talk about having diverse and inclusive organizations. And this is a really, really, really great time for us to look at our organizational culture. We have a lot going on. There's a lot going on. There's COVID. Everyone's being affected by that. That's touching everyone in some way. Unfortunately, the disenfranchised and lower income people, they're being hit hardest. And those are our employees. So sometimes those are our line employees. Are we having conversations with them? Aside from that one town hall where we said, hey, we're not closing. This is what we're going to do. Have we checked in with them? To see what's going on? Or is it because, now that COVID has been going on for so long and we've adjusted our lifestyles, that we automatically make assumptions that our employees have been able to adjust at the same rate? Well, sometimes there aren't the same opportunities, so again, diversity and inclusion. In terms of civil unrest, there are a lot of things that are going on. Our young people are saying, hey, we're just not going to stand for things anymore. Things need to change. They need to change now. We're tired of waiting, and things need to change. So, that's going to change the face of your employees. It's going to change your organization, whether you want to accept it or not. It is going to change your organization. There was a special on Fox 29 in Philadelphia last week where it was talking about African American women embracing their natural hair. You have many, 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 many more African American women that are choosing to forego relaxers. We're not pressing and straightening your hair anymore. We're saying, hey, this is who I am. This is who I am. And I'm a good person and I'm a smart person and I'm going to be a wonderful asset to your organization. And if you want me to join your organization and you want to benefit from my knowledge and my know-how, you're going to accept me as who I am. And I'm no longer going to tie myself into this small mold to fit you to make sure you're comfortable. When I'm at an organization, 8 hours a day, a lot of times we're there longer than 8 hours a day, our admin staff and our staff that works in the office, and also our production staff. A lot of times they're working overtime. This is where I am a large portion of my day, and I'm going to make sure that I'm comfortable, and I'm going to embrace me, and I'm going to love me. So, how do you feel about that? Are you confused? Do you understand what African American women mean when they're saying, "Hey, I'm going natural"? There's such a array of different types of people in the African American community that you can't make assumptions. You can't, look at one person, one woman, and say she's sporting her natural hair, and look at another woman, and because the texture is different or the color's different or it's styled differently, say that she's not. And you can't use one person to say, that's our mold. So, we're now going to accept, African Americans that have a more European look, African American women that are sporting a more European look with their hair, and that everyone that wears twists, they're okay too, because we've determined that that's what their natural hair is like. No, you have to have conversations. The only way that you can get this information is to talk to your employees, to talk to the people that are part of your diverse workforce, to create an organization that is inclusive. One way to do that is to utilize your employee boards. So many companies have employee boards where, there's certain, like maybe a person from the accounting team is part of this organization, and a person from human resources, and a person from the admin team, and a person from, the first shift production line, or a couple different people working in different areas in production. And they have employee meetings, and they, usually come up with things like, hey, I think we should have a picnic this year, and I think we should have it at ABC Park because it's centrally located. Use this board. They're there. They are dying to give your input, give you their input, but you haven't asked. But you also need to make sure that you are ready to put the work in, that you're ready to facilitate the conversation, and that you're ready to listen. So, we would be more than happy to help you figure out how to facilitate these conversations. We would be more than happy to help you create a diversity and inclusion training session that works well for your organization, so that you can continue to be number one in your market, because we're in a market that's ever changing, and in order to remain on top, we've got to change with it. So we don't want to run the risk of not hiring the best and the brightest millennials and Generation Z that's coming through our doors, just simply because we're thinking in an old mindset. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I look forward to talking to you this week. Bye-bye.